India basically votes against a Gaza ceasefire at the United Nations General Assembly. The war between Israel and Hamas escalates as Israel starts its ground invasion of Gaza, and Supreme Court and the central government fight amongst each other to make sure that you don't know who funds them. Welcome. This is the Nikhil Chaudhari show. Now, over the weekend at the United Nations General Assembly, there was a resolution put forward by Jordan and a neighboring state to Israel, an Islamic state. And the resolution was to put a stop to the war, basically to create a ceasefire in Gaza to make sure all the humanitarian aid, among other things, can get done. The resolution was passed, 120 countries voted for it. 45 countries abstained from it, including India, and 40 voted against it, including United States. Now, the surprising thing is India abstained from this thing because we have a long history of helping the Palestinian people when it comes to United Nations resolutions as well as other things. We have always voted in favor for their cause, even though we are good friends with Israel. We have never let them know that we don't have their back when it comes to United Nations resolutions. But this time, what has changed? The resolution itself put forward by Jordan had a massive problem. It did not even mention Hamas and their atrocities at all. The resolution was to only stop the deaths of Israeli and Palestinian people, or to stop more deaths of these people, but there was no mention of Hamas at all. And maybe that is the reason India abstained from it, because we share similar problems to Israel. We have all these similar issues when it comes to Kashmir. There are a lot of terrorist groups which operate same way as Hamas does, and that is mainly the reason we have abstained from the vote. Now, another reason might be that we have obviously since 2014 we have voted more in favor for Israel when it comes to these issues. We have improved our relations massively since 2014, and because we share similar problems, this makes sense that we would abstain from it. In this case, abstaining from it basically means you're voting against it, and that is because Hamas, like other groups in Kashmir, needs to be eradicated. They needs to be wiped out from the face of the earth. That's what needed to be done to them, and that's why India has abstained from it. Now, the one of the countries voted against it was United States, and that is the reason that even though this ceasefire was passed at the UN, this won't help much, because as long as United States is helping Israel, I don't think this war is going to stop at all, and for good reasons, because until and unless the Hamas is eradicated, this shouldn't stop at all. Because if they are not eradicated, then in few years time they will get back up, and then we will see all these things again, and we don't have time for that. No one is going to like that, so it's better to finish them off once and for all. Now, speaking of war, it's been 3 days since Israel has started its ground invasion of Gaza. This time though, they are doing it very differently compared to other times they have been put forward in similar kind of situation. This time they have started from the northern side of Gaza Strip. They have been very precise. They have sent few tanks among its some of its military, and they are targeting specific targets in those areas, and among with its airstrikes. By the way, airstrikes are still continuing, but thing which has changed is that usually Israel or IDF likes to show off their tactics, show off their dominance. So what usually they do, they use the body cam on the soldiers and they record the footage, and then they put it on social media to show how great the Israeli military is and how great their tactics are. Basically, they show off their war skills, and that's all good, but this time they are not doing that. And why is that? We don't know. No one knows, basically, because this is the approach that we have never seen from IDF at all. And I think it's good, because if you go all in, if you try to get to Gaza from all sides, I think it's going to distribute the resources in a way that it won't help them to capture the territory. It won't help them to be precise. It will be absolute chaos. So what they have done this time is actually really good. And I think even though it might take a while for them to capture the territory, it would be worth it, because it would mean less civilian deaths, less people getting killed who are innocent, and be specifically they can eradicate Hamas from step by step, from north to south, and Hamas needs to be wiped off. And I think this approach will help them do that. Compared to going all in, it would be just stalemate like we have seen in the Ukraine and Russia war. Because even though Hamas is not a state like Russia or Ukraine is, they have a lot of resources, they have a lot of backings when it comes to Iran backing them, and among other Muslim countries. So if Israel would have gone all in, then it would have been stalemate. So they are being very specific. They're capturing territory back from north and then going back slowly to south to make sure Hamas is eradicated. Now let's head back home to India. In Supreme Court today, there is going to be interesting resolution which is going to get discussed. The resolution is to eliminate cash deposits or cash donations to any political parties in India, whether they're done by normal day citizens like you and me as well as big corporations. And it's going to get replaced by something called electoral fund system, which basically means that all these deposits will get digitalized. That means we will know who has funded who or who is giving donations to who, whether it's you and me or it's big corporations. And government is fighting against it. The current government, BJP, is fighting against it to make sure this does not happen. Now, why do they want that? But let's discuss first what grounds they are using to do that. And they are basically using our constitution with specific Article 19, Section D. Let's take a look at the article first, and then we'll discuss why government doesn't want you to know who is funding them. So basically, we are going to take a look at Article 19, Section E. The Section E says right to information. The last line reads, and the right of voters to know the antecedents of electoral candidates. Antecedents is the word that we need to focus on, because it means that any political candidate who is fielded for any election in India, wherever, we need to know history of it. We need to know if they're criminally charged, is there any past of them, we need to know. But this is very vague, and because it's vague, it can be interpreted 10 different ways, and that's what government is still doing. One of the main lawyers who is fighting against this for the government side have said that the citizens have a right to know the record of the people, and the lawyers who are fighting for the government on this issue has specifically said, and I quote, that the right to know the criminal antecedents of the candidate, which can be of utility and relevance to the choice of the candidate, is neither comparable to the case on hand, nor can there be any general right to know anything and everything for undefined ends. Now, what it means is that we don't have right to know who is funding what political parties, because they are using this vague amendment, this vague article in the constitution to get around it. And the thing is, it's not just a BJP issue, or it's just not a Congress issue. Any political party in India does not want you to know that who is funding them, because if we do, then all these quid pro quo activities will get stopped. It cannot be like you scratch my back and I scratch yours, because that's what usually happens. That's what has been happening, whether it's Congress, whether it's BJP, whether it's any other party. That's usually happens, that all these big corporations, all these big billionaires in India basically gets all these government contracts and everything, and then they get something in return as well. The political parties get something in return, and you know what they get in return. And to stop that, Supreme Court is actually doing something good for once. I don't think that's going to work, because the amendment the government is going to use, or the article government is going to use to fight against this, it's so vague, and the article in question will get used by the government the way they want to do, to make sure that you don't know who is funding who. And that's it for today's show. We'll see you tomorrow.